James went pale. He opened his laptop and started searching online, finding forum posts and local legends about the house. The story was always the same, built in 1923 by a group called the Eternal Circle, a cult that believed they could cheat death through ritual sacrifice. They'd built the house on a specific site, carved symbols into its foundation, and bound it with blood magic to sustain their lives. But something went wrong. The cult died anyway, but the house remained, still hungry, still. He was right. They had nothing left to lose. James grabbed a hammer from his toolbox and brought it down on the seal with all his strength. The house screamed. It was the only word for it. A sound like metal tearing, like 1,000 voices crying out in agony, like the world breaking open. Every candle went out at once. In the darkness, Mira heard James whisper her name. She reached for him, but her hands found only empty air. "James, I'm here," he said, and she followed his voice until her hands touched his face. He was crying. "I'm so sorry, Mira. I'm so sorry I didn't believe you. It's not your fault. We're going to get out of this. We're going to." The shadows lunged. They weren't just darkness anymore, they had weight, mass, intention. Mira felt them wrap around her waist, her arms, her throat, pulling her backward with irresistible force. She fought, screaming, reaching for James, but the shadows were stronger. "James!" He grabbed her hands, held on with desperate strength. "I won't let you go. I won't." But something pulled back harder, something ancient and hungry that had been waiting too long. The voice came from everywhere, from the walls, from the floor, from the very air they breathed. "A life promised cannot leave. Take me," James shouted into the darkness. "Let her go and take me instead." But the house had already chosen. Mira felt herself being dragged toward the center of the room, toward the broken seal. She had time for one last look at James, one last moment to memorize his face. "I love you," she said. "I love you, I love you, I." The floor opened beneath her, and she fell into darkness deeper than night, darker than death. Her screams cut off the moment she disappeared, swallowed by the hungry house. The seal glowed red, fresh blood filling the carved symbols, sealing the contract. Then silence, complete and total silence. A life promised cannot leave. James knelt in the center of the room, alone. The front door swung open, letting in cold morning air. He'd paid the price. He was free to leave. He stumbled out of the house as dawn broke across the sky, blood on his hands and his clothes, Myra's name dying on his lips. He walked down Sycamore Street without looking back, got in their car, and drove. He drove until the house was miles behind him. Drove until he reached the city with its tall buildings and crowds of people who had no idea that houses could hunger, that homes could kill. 3 weeks later, James had an apartment in downtown, a job that kept him busy 16 hours a day, and medication that helped him sleep without dreaming. He'd convinced himself almost that he could forget, that he could move on, that Mira was gone and there was nothing he could do to bring her back. He was walking to work when he stopped at a crosswalk, waiting for the light to change. The morning sun reflected off the glass building across the street, and in that reflection, James saw her. Mira stood behind him, pale and blood-streaked, her mouth moving in words he couldn't hear. He spun around. The sidewalk was empty, just him and dozens of strangers who pushed past without noticing his panic. Then he heard it, her voice, soft and close, like she was whispering directly into his ear. "You still owe." James looked down at his hands. The same cuts from that first morning had opened again, bleeding through his bandages. He looked up at the office building ahead, and for just a moment its windows looked exactly like the windows of the house on Sycamore Street. And he could hear it again, that deep, wet breathing that came from walls, from floors, from the very foundations of the world. The house had let him go, but it hadn't let him go forever. He'd paid for his freedom with Myra's life, but he'd stayed in the house too. He'd signed the contract too. And somewhere in the city, somewhere close, the house was waiting to collect the rest of what he owed. Sometimes survival isn't victory. Sometimes it's just a delayed payment. And the house always collects its debts. This is just the beginning of the end. Leave a comment if you want a part 3. Like, subscribe and share for part 3. The wind whispered through the empty halls, carrying with it the last traces of Mira's sacrifice. The house had grown still, too still. Its hunger quieted, its voice silenced. For now.